Welcome to Slideshow Design, Part 1 of Presentation Fundamentals, a core professional development course. Presentation Fundamentals is divided into two parts. Part 1, Slideshow Design, is an online course that will help you identify the purpose of your presentation, outline your content, and tailor your message to fit a specific audience. You will also learn a variety of graphic design techniques that will help you create a presentation that is visually appealing and easy to understand. Part 2, Speaking Skills, is an instructor-led course which will provide techniques and tips for delivering engaging presentations. Participants will deliver 5-minute presentations and receive feedback. Slideshow Design can be completed online at any time. In order to register for Speaking Skills, you must complete Slideshow Design and make a slideshow which you will use to present. You can register for Speaking Skills by clicking on the UIC Training Index on the left side of this page. Before you begin creating a presentation, it is crucial to identify your purpose. Ask yourself why you are presenting and how you want your presentation to impact your audience. If someone has asked you to present, determine their expectations before moving forward. Write down the desired outcome of your presentation and refer back to it frequently to keep yourself on track. Presentations typically fall into one of the following 4 categories: informational, instructional, inspirational, or persuasive. Each of these purposes calls for a slightly different approach which will affect the way you outline your content and tailor your message. Think about which purpose fits your presentation so you can plan accordingly. After you have established the purpose of your presentation, it's time to outline your content. First, try brainstorming with a pen and paper, jotting down ideas as they come to you. Once you have an idea of what you will cover, decide what your main points will be. These will form the skeleton of your presentation, which can then be fleshed out. While outlining your content, remember that a presentation is driven by the speaker. First, plan what you are going to say. Then figure out how to use slides to complement your message. It is often helpful to create a paper storyboard for your presentation before transferring it to the computer. This can be as simple as notes on basic content, along with sketches of slide ideas. Finally, be sure to consider the amount of time you will have to present. Always trim your content to fit your time slot. Even if your content is excellent, your presentation will be ineffective if you are forced to rush. Once you have outlined your content, you can tailor your message to fit a specific audience. In order to do this, you must first determine who your audience is. Then, put yourself in that audience's shoes and consider how they might respond to your presentation. Are they sensitive to certain topics or language? What are their cultural norms? What is their education level? Do they have prior experience related to the topic? What about background knowledge? Asking yourself these types of questions will help you decide whether you need to modify your presentation. Based on your analysis of the audience, you might decide to use examples that will be familiar or steer clear of a potential controversy. Creating your slides is the most critical step in the design process because they make up the final product that you will present. At this point, you have established your purpose, outlined your content, and tailored your message. Now, it's time to figure out how you are going to translate that information into a presentation that is visually appealing and easy to understand. This section will cover graphic design theory and provide rules of thumb to guide your design process. While you will need to deviate from these suggestions occasionally, it is important to keep them in mind. Let's explore some general graphic design principles before getting into details. Obviously, when you present, you want the audience to remember what you said. Your ideas will be more memorable if you keep your presentation simple, limit text and focus on visuals, highlight important points, connect your content through an example, story, or theme, and repeat information. Most presentations are built around text. While understandable, this is problematic because presenters are tempted to read from their slides, a surefire way to bore an audience. Not only does reading from slides make for a dry presentation, but an audience can read faster than a presenter can speak, so they are likely to read ahead and stop listening. This slide contains too much text. The presenter will be tempted to read each bullet point, and the audience is likely to read ahead. Each bullet could be simplified to highlight the important points. A good rule of thumb is to use no more than 12 words per slide. This will prevent you from reading your slides, and since the slides won't contain all of your content, the audience will need to pay attention to you to get most of the information. This also means that you can use a larger font size, which will be easier to read. In many cases, instead of using text, it is best to simply use a visual that complements your message. A presentation that favors visuals over text will be easier to understand and remember. Sometimes you need to convey a great deal of specific information to your audience. This does not mean that you need to put everything in your slideshow. Instead, include the basic information in your slides and pass out a detailed handout after your presentation. This way, the audience will pay attention while you are presenting and have a reference for future use. There are two basic types of fonts: serif fonts and sans serif fonts. Serif fonts have lines with exaggerated ends, which are referred to as serifs. Sans serif fonts do not. Times New Roman is a common serif font. Helvetica is a common sans serif font. Some research suggests that sans serif fonts are better for presenting because they are easier to read when projected. To achieve a unique look for your presentation, choose a font other than the default. You can do this by simply browsing through your font library or by searching online for fonts that are commonly used by graphic designers. Using too many fonts will take away from the consistency of your presentation and distract your audience. You should not use more than 3 fonts. Most of the time, you will only need 1. You can use colors to unify your slideshow visually and to highlight important points. Choosing a color scheme is more of an art than a science. Sometimes your colors can reflect your content. For example, a slideshow on donating blood might be red and white. If your content does not logically connect with a particular color scheme, it is often helpful to look at popular websites and magazines for inspiration. Additionally, an online search for color scheme will direct you to one of many sites designed to help you choose complementary colors. Once you have settled on a color scheme, it's usually best to stick with it for the entire slideshow. Creating contrast is one of the key elements of an effective slideshow. You can create contrast through the use of different colors, sizes, and font styles. On this slide, notice how contrast is used to highlight the important information. As you are creating your slideshow, be on the lookout for opportunities to use contrast to enhance your slides. Pictures can make or break your slideshow. Quality images that connect to your content will engage your audience. Clip art or low-resolution images will distract your audience. After you have created a storyboard for your presentation, take some time to locate high-resolution images that complement your message. Avoid clip art or low-resolution images that will pixelate if you make them larger. Then, figure out how to incorporate your images into your slides. This will usually require some cropping and resizing. If you are using images that have a white background, it's usually best to use a white slide background as well. Presenting data is a challenge because your audience will be overwhelmed if you include too many numbers in your slideshow. The same rules that apply to text apply to data. Keep it simple and highlight the important points. With data, you can select representative numbers or facts and then visualize them for your audience. Charts, graphs, and diagrams work well for this purpose. Another way to make your data meaningful is to use an illustration. For example, the population of the United States is about 311 million, while the world population is 6.9 billion. Simply putting those two numbers on a slide won't mean much to an audience. You could make this more meaningful by saying that the United States is home to about 4.5% of the world's population. You could also include an illustration that would be much more memorable than any number or percentage. Synthesis is the final step in the slideshow design process. You have created your content, now you have to assemble it into the final product. First, make sure that you have an interesting opening slide that will grab your audience's attention. For the body of your presentation, follow the one slide, one idea rule. When you move on to a new idea, you should also move on to a new slide. This will help the audience follow your presentation and keep them engaged. If you are going to refer to a previous slide, insert the slide again. That way you won't have to interrupt your presentation by backtracking. At the end of your slideshow, include a recap slide that highlights what your presentation covered. This will help your audience remember the important takeaways. Finally, be sure to proofread your slideshow at least twice. When you are finished, consider saving your slideshow in PDF format. This will ensure that everything will appear correctly when you present. That brings us to the end of slideshow design. Speaking skills, the second half of presentation fundamentals, will be led by an instructor. It will cover how to present in an effective, professional manner. Now that you have completed slideshow design, you will need to prepare a presentation for speaking skills. Your presentation should be aimed at an audience within UIC. For example, it could be a project plan, a briefing for employees, or a progress report. Ideally, it will be part of a presentation that you will actually need to give at some point. Your presentation needs to be exactly 5 minutes long and contain at least 5 slides. During speaking skills, you will receive techniques and tips for delivering engaging presentations. Then, you will deliver your presentation and receive feedback. Here is a checklist to guide your slideshow design. Include an interesting opening slide. Do not use more than 3 fonts. Do not use more than 12 words per slide. Use size and color to create contrast. Include quality images that relate to your content. Follow the one slide, one idea rule. If you have data, present it visually so it is easy to understand. Include a recap slide at the end. And unify your presentation through the use of a visual theme. Here is the checklist that the instructor will use to evaluate your speaking. Do you clearly state your purpose? Is it evident that your message is tailored to fit your audience? Are your main points highlighted? Is your presentation 5 minutes long? Does your presentation follow a logical sequence? Do you make good eye contact with the audience? Does your body language complement your speaking? Do you vary your tone? Do you speak slowly so the audience can understand you? Do you project your voice so the audience can hear you? Do you avoid casual language and filler words like And are you wearing appropriate attire? You can register for speaking skills by clicking on the UIC Training Index on the left side of this page. Once you have accessed the training index, simply search for speaking skills. You can also use the UIC Training Index to find other professional development courses.